how to manage your books in REsimpli so you can accurately track your KPIs and also increase your net profit, especially on the marketing side of the business. As real estate investors, typically one of our biggest expenses, if not the biggest expenses we'll have as investors, is marketing. My name is Sharad. I am the owner and founder of REsimpli. I have been investing for I bought my first property in August 2010, so about 12 years now. I started buying a bunch of rental properties and then did a little bit of wholesaling. And now primarily we do fix and flip. Our fix and flip is more to turnkey investors from out of state investors. I own a property management company. We manage about 175 to 185 units. And then our primary exit is to fix our properties, rent them out, and sell to out-of-state investors and have our property management company manage that. If you guys are not doing that, especially if you are in Midwest, I would definitely look into that. That has been much more profitable for us and opens up a bunch of different exits for us than just doing wholesaling or selling to homeowners. So, and what we've used primarily, primarily we have our own buyers that we're selling properties to, but what has really worked well for us is selling properties on roofstock.com. I've went over that in a couple of my other calls. If you guys are not doing that, I would definitely look into that, and really great opportunity to exit properties. And it's been super smooth process for us working for Roofstock. You pay them about, I believe, 2.5%. It's under 3% from what I remember. We just sold a property to them last month, and it was a very smooth process. You have an investor from out of town. It's sort of like a marketplace for buyers and sellers. Think of it like MLS for investors that are looking to buy cash flow properties. And you should definitely go check out what other investors here. I'll put it in. I'll quickly share my screen and just go over that. Yeah, so this is the website that we have used a lot to sell our properties. Really cool site. If nothing else, I would at least set up an account with them and just go through their underwriting process for one of the properties. You don't have to list with them, but if you do decide to list with them, I believe they ask for 15 to 30-day exclusivity with them. And every time we've been able to sell a property within that exclusive time period, it's basically based on how much cash flow the property is generating. You kind of like base your pricing on that. And it's a cool way to just keep an eye on what other properties in your market are selling for. So if I could just go right here, properties, and I'll go to, let's say, my location, and then you can filter and find out. So I'm going to go to Indiana, where we buy and sell properties, and I'm going to exclude Indianapolis. And then once you do that, depending on what neighborhood you're selling in, like we don't sell anything in Indianapolis. We're Northwest Indiana, right outside of Chicago. So let me see if I find something. There's a whole bunch of properties, but you'll get a pretty good idea right here. Yeah, I don't know why it's showing Indianapolis right here, but you'll get a pretty good idea of what other investors are selling their properties for. And you don't have to go through, these people that are buying these properties are, already qualified buyers. Most of the time they're buying with cash, or they're pre-qualified lenders. They have pre-qualified loan in place. Super easy process. And, at least you'll get an idea of what other investors in your market are selling their properties from. So someday you might think, I'm going to sell this property for, let's say, 110,000. You might notice somebody else, in that neighborhood or in that city is selling a property for 125,000. And then you can kind of get a, sense of, hey, there's maybe a little bit more equity that I have, or a little bit more money I can make on the property. You don't have to have property management. Generally, Roofstock will have their own preferred vendors in each area. We haven't gone down that route. It's not like worth for us. But if you want to do that, you could reach out to them and have the property be managed by one of their preferred property management companies, and then sell that property. And it doesn't even switch property management. Like when we sell, most of the time, the buyer will switch over to one of the preferred vendors, but we're making, top of the line price we're selling it for, so make a good profit on that. We're only paying 2.5%. So really easy way. I would definitely look into this. It's called roofstock.com. Again, just go through their underwriting process, if nothing else, even if you don't actually end up listing. It's just something good for you guys to know, another option that's out there for listing your properties. Just in last month, we bought 8 properties, and 7 of them were going to sell. There's 6 2 to 3 unit properties, 1 single family, and 2 single family. One of them it's a little bit higher end property, so we're going to put it on the market, sell it to a homeowner. All the other 7 properties we bought with the intention of selling it either on Roofstock to or our buyers list. And we kind of we've even gotten to the point where some of the areas where we are buying properties will reach out to Roofstock and see if their end buyers, their investors are buying in that city or not. Once the interest rate started going up, the city in the market that we buy, Gary, Indiana, and they said, buyers are not feeling comfortable buying in Gary, Indiana. So we stopped our buying, because if our end buyer is not buying in that market, then we're not going to buy in that market. So really, really cool way to dispose your properties if you guys are not looking into it. I would definitely look at. The only thing is it has to be a finished property rented out. And then if the more time that you have on the lease, the more favorable the buyer will look at that property. So if you have a lease right now, if you can get 1.5 year or 2 year lease and then put it on Roofstock, it gets looked very, very favorably by the end buyer. Versus if you just have 1 or 2 months left on your lease, then the end buyer, they don't look at it as favorably. So any questions on this? I'm more than happy to answer, but this has been a really great exit opportunity. Yes, Jim. So we rent the properties out before we sell them. I don't know if that's a requirement, but that's how we've always done. I think, again, the end buyer that's buying the property, they really look at it very favorably. So we always rent it. And as soon as we kind of time it where as soon as the lease periods, we've already started, we start our listing process with them around the same time where we know our tenant is going to move in, then we'll put it on the market. We'll put it on Roofstock around the same time the lease starts. So we have 11 months. If it's a 1-year lease, at least 11 months left on the lease. Marshall put a fun fact for Roofstock acquired Great Jones, a tech-enabled property management company in 2020, which had something like 3,000 doors under management since they were founded. VC backed, raised 33 million. Yeah, so they're definitely VC backed. They've been a great platform for us. We've had super straightforward process. Once you go through initial underwriting process with them, it's a very easy process. They'll have you, I don't remember my project managers, but at least initially we had to have an inspection on the property. But if there's any major issues on the property, then they won't let you list it. But if it's minor stuff, then when you're listing it, you list it with the inspection, or at least that's how you used to list it. My project manager manages the entire process. All I do is just sign the closing documents. So very easy process. Jim said we've sold a few with them in the past. I'll check them out. Yeah, definitely. Dominic said, who do you use for property management software? We use RentTech Direct. We used to use Palladium, but my team likes the simplicity of RentTech Direct. So that's what we use right now. It's a pretty straightforward. I mean, I let my property management team decide that. They interviewed Palladium, RentTech Direct, and a couple of other companies that did demo, but they felt most comfortable with RentTech Direct. So, all right, guys. So the topic for today is how to manage your books in REsimpli, so you can accurately track your KPIs and also increase your net profit, especially on the marketing side of the business. As real estate investors, typically one of our biggest expenses, if not the biggest expenses we'll have as investors, is marketing, whether it's direct mail, cold calling, SMS, or whatever marketing we might be doing. It's really important to make sure that you know exactly how much money you're spending on marketing, how much money you're making from every single campaign. So that's what we're going to go into right now. If you have any questions, please feel free to put it in the chat or unmute yourself. So We have our integration with Plaid on the back end. So if you want to link up your bank account, sorry, let me go into another test account really quick. Okay. So if you want to link up your bank account, you click right here for me to add. So you want to go to banking right here, click on banking, click add account, link account. It's going to open up a pop-up from Plaid. So your bank account integration goes through Plaid. Plaid is the same company that companies like Venmo, Wise, and a couple of the large companies use. So we use their integration to link up your bank account. You want to click on agree. They have pretty much all the banks they integrate with nationwide. But whichever bank you're integrating with, these are some of the most, widely used banks: Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo. But whichever bank you have, if you have like a credit union, just type in their name or URL, it's going to pop up. The name, just select that. Otherwise, just go ahead, select if you have a Chase, go put in there. It goes through authentication process with your bank. Just click that and put in your username, password. And with Chase, I have a two-factor authentication. They'll send me a text message. I'll have to input the code right there, put in my information, only then it'll be verified, and I'll get a message from Chase also letting me know that REsimpli integrated through Plaid. So that's where I know kind of what's going on. But once you've integrated your bank account, credit card accounts, it's going to pull up by default. When you link up your bank account, it will only pull your transactions for that specific month. So today's April 11th. So if I link up my bank account, it will only download my transactions for the month of April. But if you want to download all the transactions that you have, you want to go in right here, click on get historic transaction, and then just select the date. Just by default, it does this month. But let's say if I want to get all the transactions for starting this year, I think it goes back 24 months. But let's say if I want to get all my transactions from the beginning of the year, I just click this year, click right here, submit, and it'll pull all the transactions from the first of the month or first of the year to now, and then you have all the transactions. So that's how you link up your bank account. And if for some reason your bank doesn't integrate through Plaid and you want to add your bank account manually, go into add account, click on manual account, and then you want to enter the name. Let's say I'm going to do Chase Bank. Account type, checking, savings, credit card. Let's say checking. Account number, I'll just put 1234. And balance. So you want to put in the beginning balance whenever you are, if you're inputting your transaction from the beginning of the year. So you want to put the balance that you had in your bank account starting Jan 1st. Let's say I had $10,000. I'll put the balance date as Jan 1st. So as you're inputting the transaction, anything after Jan 1st, it will update your bank balance right here. Anything before Jan 1st, it will not include it because you've already put in the balance as of Jan 1st of $10,000. So, and if you want to enter any transactions, once you've linked up your bank account, let's say I want to go into, this bank account and I have this transaction. So what I would want to do is it will pull all my transactions. I'll go right here and then I'll select the vendor that you want to add. So if you want to add additional vendor, you just click right here. Let's say I'm going to do new vendor today. You want to select the vendor type, whatever vendor type it's. So now with the update that we made recently, it integrates the accounting section of the vendor, fully integrates with the vendor section that we have in contact. So let's say this is my contractor, and then I'm going to select contractor type. Let's say this is my flooring guy. I go ahead and do that. I'll automatically select that. And property address would be, let's say this is just a general business expense, and this is going to be, let me see, other repair expense. So once I do that, it automatically selected this as money going out of my bank account. I highly recommend that if you have the invoice or whatever documentation you have, I've gone through a pretty bad IRS audit myself. But luckily I came out without paying any penalty, any fee, because I had all the documentation for my transaction. What you really want to do is you want to click right here, add files, and attach the invoice that you have from the vendor. So if you were to get, audited, you could always come back to this transaction, the document that you have, the invoice or whatever receipt that you have from that vendor, will be saved right here, and you can just download it and submit it for the IRS audit. So the way I went through IRS audit was they just pulled like a bunch of different transactions from my tax return and say, can you provide proof for, $50,000 worth of interest expense that you have, or proof for this high repair expense or whatnot. And I had all the receipts. So I went in, submitted all the receipts, they reviewed it. They had some follow-up questions, I provided additional information, and that was it. So you want to make sure you're keeping really, really good documentation of the transactions that you have. I don't think there's any limit to how many files or you can upload, but at least like if you have a copy of the check, invoice and whatnot, start, getting into the habit of attaching. And then additional description, transaction memo that you have, the more information you have, the better. Once you do that, save based on the transaction that you made, based on the transaction memo, it will recognize the transaction, move it over to the recognize tab. So if it matches, based on a transaction memo, the system will assume that you're paying the same vendor for the same property from the same account tab, and it will always do it based on the last transaction that you did. So let's say all of these were to the new vendor today, property address is correct, account tag, I can just click confirm. It will move over all the transactions over to that vendor, to that property, and to that account tag. And then I can go ahead and I can go into the vendor tab, and I can go right here, go into the financials, and it'll show me all the money that I've spent to that vendor. So now it consolidates, keeps a central place for everything that you're doing with that vendor, all the communication, any text messages, calls, any financial document that you have, or any transaction that you've done. You can see exactly how much money you spent paying that vendor. And then you can also go into the report section. You can go into the income statement, and it'll create an income statement for you for the year it defaults to this year. And I'll show you like how much money you've made from all your transactions, and it'll organize based on the transaction type that you have, whether it's fix and flip income, wholesale income, or we'll go into that one of those transactions. But this is where all the repair expenses that I had, it got added right here. I can click right here. It'll take me to the list of all the transactions for for that vendor that I just added new vendor today. So any questions on this so far before I kind of get into how you would enter your marketing expenses or anything else? Yeah. So if you have any questions, just Craig, did you have a question?
Yeah, Sharad, one note is that for us, we're hitting like refresh, each week when we go in, we hit the refresh, but we're having to hit the get historic transactions each week because refresh seems to miss stuff.
Okay, I'll have, if you don't mind, just shoot me a message if it's happening with a particular bank. I know you sent for the brokerage account, you sent some information. So we're looking into that with Plaid. It didn't pull some transaction, but just if you want to email it to me, I'll get that looked into with my developer. And we have some other update coming to banking this week or probably next week. I'll show you a summary, and I'll show you kind of what we're working on. I'll show you a summary of the transaction, so you can like kind of start reconciling your bank account, start matching the number of transactions that got pulled into REsimpli from Plaid versus what you actually had on your bank statement. So you can start kind of making sure that there was not any transaction that was missed. But yeah, if you don't mind sending me an email with the bank that it's happening with, I'll have my team check into with Plaid and see what might have happened.
Okay. Yep. It's with Chase, but I'll send you an email.
Okay, cool. Thanks, man.
Okay. Yep.
All right. So I'll say one thing: if you guys are not inputting any of your general repair or rehab costs at a minimum to get the best value from what we built at REsimpli, at a minimum, what I would do is I would at least put my marketing expenses and my revenue expenses. Like that's where you'll know exactly kind of how your business is going. More or less like us as real estate investors, or most of the people on this call, we're really in a marketing business, right? Once we stop marketing in our business kind of stops. Like sellers don't know that we're still buying properties. So you really, really want to keep track of what is going on with our marketing, not just at a very high level. Hey, this is how much 100,000 I spent on marketing and I made 200,000. You want to know how much money you spend sending direct mail to a specific list. So I'll show you kind of how that works. So once you have added your phone numbers in REsimpli, right, we ask you to assign it a lead source and we ask you to give it a campaign name. So once you've done that, let's say I'm going to use this Google AdWords lead source and Google PPC as an example. So when I go back into my banking, I'm going to use this as an example. Let's say I go back here and let's say this is my $1,000 that I spent marketing to that to my Google AdWords. So I'm going to change this vendor to ABC Marketing. And instead of for the account, I am going to select my lead source of Google AdWords. I'm going to type Google AdWords. And once you do that, any campaign that you have running in, it's going to pull up any time you select for the account, you select a lead source, whether it's Google AdWords, whether it's direct mail, cold calling, it's going to pull up another option for you to select campaign. In the campaign, that's going to show you all the specific campaigns that you're running for that lead source. So for this one, I'm only running Google PPC. You'll see right here. So I'm going to go ahead and select this. And we're going to show you what this would look like. So if I go into my marketing tab right here, so you'll notice that I have $482.98 spent so far on my Google AdWords marketing. So I'm going to go ahead and input this transaction right here of $1,021. Once I input this, I refresh my account. Should update to like 1,400 something. Yeah, 1,500. And you'll notice that my total money spent on Google PPC campaign went from 500 something that I have or 400 something that I had to $1,500 based on additional expenses that I have. And I'll click right here. It'll show me everywhere I've spent the money. All of this data right here is clickable. So you can click right there. And I'll show you another example on direct mail. So you'll notice that for direct mail, I have a probate campaign and I have an absentee campaign. So if I'm going to go back right here and I'm going to use, let's say I did mailing with Ballpoint Marketing and I spent direct mail. So this $332.25, it's going to pull up all the campaigns that I have in my business that I'm actively running. So let's say this was the money that I spent marketing to my probate list. I would enter this and I would put, mailing to probate list. And then if you want to attach any invoice or, the actual soft proof of the letter that you had from Ballpoint Marketing, you can go ahead and do that. But once I save it and I come back to my KPIs, so notice I don't have anything on my absentee or probate, but once I select refresh the page, go back, this amount got added to probate. So now I know exactly how much money I spent marking to my probate list. And if you look at right here in total, it will show me most of the investors, they will look at their business at this very high level of, hey, I spent $3,400 in marketing and I made $4,400. Like that's the extent of what most of the investors will look at. But if you really want to get advantage and you want to be very, very efficient with your marketing, what you want to do is you want to look in depth into your numbers. So you might notice that even though if I just looked at on a very high level, if I just looked at my P&L, it'll show me that I spent $3,400 in marketing and I made $4,400 from my revenue. Okay, I'm making 1.3 times what I'm spending on my marketing. But once you dig deeper into your numbers, you might notice, again, these are made up numbers. You might notice that actually the money that I made, I haven't made anything from my direct mail. I haven't made anything from my Google AdWords. I haven't made anything from my pay per lead. All the money that I made is from Craigslist actually. So I could have not spent any money on direct mail, Google AdWords, or pay per lead and still made that $4,400 without spending any money on my marketing. So that's where you start getting insight on, which marketing it is that's actually working. And to take it a step further, what you want to do is, let me go into one of my sold properties. Let me look at a different one from. Okay, so this 348 North 17th Avenue came from direct mail probate list, right? So let's say if I am inputting my numbers in the system, what I would do is I would go into this account. Let's say this is my revenue number. And I would say, let's say this was my ABC title company that I sold the property with, and I did 348 North 17th Avenue. And the account would be what type of income it was. Was it fix and flip income, whether it was wholesale, innovation income, whatever it was, whether it was rental income, you want to make sure you categorize, you input that properly right here. So I am going to do, let's say, I'm just going to, for this purpose, I'm just going to go ahead and select rental income, and I'll show you kind of what that looks like on my P&L and everywhere else in my system. So I go ahead and select rental income. Say method was transfer. I go ahead and save it. So once I come back here, you'll notice I have nothing over here. Once I refresh my transactions, come back into my marketing, you'll notice that now I have $10,000 that I made from my direct mail. And when I expand it, it'll show me that the $10,000 actually was made from my probate list. So based on the property address that you selected when you were inputting your transaction of 348 North 17th Avenue, the system will automatically recognize that this money that you put towards that property, 348 North 17th Avenue, was from direct mail. And even within direct mail, it was from probate income. So it would go ahead, it was for probate campaign. It would go ahead and automatically attach that, take that income, attach it with the probate campaign that you have running in your business. And then if you come in, if you were just looking at very high level on your direct mail marketing, you would notice that, hey, I spent $827. I made 10,000. This is fantastic. For every dollar that I'm putting in, I'm making $12.09. But if you go even a step further, and you're like, let me look at every single campaign that I'm running in my business, you would notice that actually on your probate campaign, every dollar that you're putting in, you're making $30.10. The other campaign that you have running, you spend about $500, but you've not made anything. I mean, again, direct mail sometimes can take 4, 5, 6 mailings, but you want to make sure you're reviewing this data at least on a monthly basis to know how everything is going in your business. You don't want to look at your data just at the very high level. Again, if you were just looking at this level, you would be like, all right, I spent $3,400 in marketing. I made $14,000. Fantastic. For every dollar that I'm putting in, I'm making $4.23. But you peel another layer and you would be like, oh, wait a minute. All the money that I'm making is from Craigslist and direct mail. If I were not doing any Google AdWords or pay per lead, I would still make that money, but I would have $2,500 less in marketing spend. But you take it a step further and have really, really good data, be extremely efficient with your marketing. You want to click right here, direct mail, and then you want to expand this. Once you expand it, you will notice that the money that you're making from direct mail is only from your probate list. The other campaign that you're running in your business, you spend $500, you've not made anything. So you really, really important that you track your numbers at that level. And then once I go into my report and I go into my income statement, now it will neatly organize my income based on the income type that I have. So it will show me that I made total $14,426 in income. Out of that, $4,400 came from my novation income, and the other came from my rental income. So this way you can start seeing, as you start buying and selling a bunch of properties, you'll start noticing that majority of your income might be coming from novation, or it might be coming from rental, it might be coming from wholesale. So it gives you really good input on data on kind of what income time is actually working in your business. And then right here in this last two columns, you'll notice what percentage of the expenses that you have, what percentage of the income that they make for the expense. So for example, I spent total legal and professional $1,600. That is 11% of my total income I spent on my legal and professional. On my marketing, of all the revenue that I have, 23% of my revenue that I had so far for the year, I spent on my marketing. And then on the repairs, I spent about 65% of my total revenue has gone into my towards my repairs that I have in my property. And then you look at my net profit, it's only $77.56. So like right now, I'm only making like 0.54% of my total revenue. Ideally, you want to be at least I would say like 40 to 50%, to be efficient. If you're not there, I mean, again, depending on whether you're paying yourself a salary or not, but I would look at least like if you're paying yourself a salary, depending on how much you're paying, at least like I would shoot for 30 to 50% range for net profit after all the costs that you have in the business are paid. You don't want, this number to be 40% and you're like, hey, this is great. My net profit ratio is 40%, but you're not paying yourself a salary. Because if you were to step away from your business and bring somebody on as a CEO or COO, you would have to pay that person. So that 40% or 30%, whatever that might be, right now, if you're not paying yourself a salary, or if you're not paying, or if you're not adjusting for that salary, it's not really a true number that you have in your business. You really want to make sure that you are factoring for that also. And I would shoot for like 30 to 50%, again, depending on whether or not you're paying yourself a salary or not. And last week we had David Richter from Profit First on the call. I've like really committed to Profit First for about a year now, and it really changed, the way I look at my business. I feel more confident going, filing my tax return. I just, I'm not waiting, extending it for 6 months just because I'm trying to manage my cash flow. So if you're not doing that, it's a very simple process. And for those of you guys who are doing Profit First, there's another really good book by Michael Crabtree. The book is called, I believe, Simple Numbers. It's a little bit more advanced Profit First. So if you feel pretty comfortable with Profit First, great. And then if you want to kind of find out like the next, a little bit more advanced accounting system, I would look into Simple Numbers. That's kind of what I follow for my house flipping business, for my rental business, and then even for REsimpli, just so that you have money set aside for your profit, for your salary, for taxes and other expenses that you have. But I would shoot for about 30 to 50% net profit, after you paid for everything that you have in your business. Again, this is a test account, but for most investors out there, I would say that marketing is going to be one of the largest expenses that you have, if not the largest. So it'll be marketing or payroll. So I would start looking at that data really carefully, and then just start combing through and see, hey, does this marketing expense make sense? You want to look at on a monthly basis at a minimum. You want to go through this data and kind of almost think of it like if you have a board of advisors coming into your business and questioning you, hey, you spent this $495 on this campaign, you haven't made any money. Can you justify this expense? Can you justify continuing to spending on this marketing expense? You kind of want to ask yourself those tough questions. It's not always about, hey, I want to make 7 figures in revenue. There's no point of making, like, if you look at this, it shows that I made 14,000 in this, dummy account that I have. But once I look at all my expenses, I only have $77.56 of net profit. So this number really doesn't matter, if net profit isn't high. So what you want to do on a monthly basis at a minimum is, it's almost like think of it like somebody coming into business and questioning you. Hey, Sharad, you spent $495. Why did you spend it? You didn't make anything from it. Can you justify why did you spend this money? Can you justify, continuing to spend money on this? Same thing would happen on your payroll. Let's say if you have payroll of, you had another $5,000 worth of payroll. Now you are in negative. So somebody's coming into your business and questioning you and saying, you spent $5,000 on payroll and you're negative profit. Like, are you sure you are not overstaffed in your business? Maybe you are sort of like an absentee investor in your business and you have people coming into your business, running your business, but you don't have profit to support that. Or you might have, let's say, $50,000 worth of profit at the end of the year for everything that you're going through. And then you have to step back and say, all right, how can I change that $50,000 to $75,000 or $100,000 going into next year? How can I, increase my profit ratio by 50 to 100% without changing anything else in my business? And I would say the 2 biggest levers that you're going to have in your business is marketing and payroll. If you are super efficient with your marketing and payroll, this number would go up. You don't want to have $100,000 or $1 million worth of revenue at the end of the year, but you're making like $30,000, $40,000. There's no point of, like boasting about this number if you don't have good net profit to show for it at the end of the year. So again, marketing and payroll are the two biggest levers. We are working on an update. Should be coming out in, I don't have it on my account, but well, actually right here. Yes. So I have a KPI comparison. It should be coming out soon. Where what we are going to start doing is, I don't have the data populated right here. We are going to start showing cost per lead that you have in your business. How does it compare with other people that are using REsimpli? So you might have a cost per lead of, let's say, $200, and then you'll be able to filter based on, there'll be some filter option based on, time period, and also based on people that are doing more than 4 deals a month, right? People that are doing more than 10 deals a month, people that are doing more than 20. So you can apply some additional filters also, but based on kind of what stage of your business you're in right now, you want to start comparing your data and see how am I doing? I mean, you won't see anybody's individual data, and your individual data won't be shared with anyone. You will always see your data and average across the platform, but at least you'll start seeing, hey, my net profit percentage is only 20%. But people that are doing, 4 deals plus per month, around my business size, their net profit percentage is, 40%. But you will also see how much money they're spending on marketing, how much money they're spending on payroll. So it'll give you a good apples to apples comparison. How much cash do they have? How much cash do I have in my bank account versus how much an average investor has? What are my assets? What are my liabilities? Cost per lead, cost per deal, and then same thing on the marketing and sales KPIs. It'll show you kind of what is the best lead source that I have in my business versus what is the average best lead source across, what's the best lead source across an average investor using REsimpli, and where are people getting most of the deals. So this is where you start seeing a little bit of a trend, which direction the marketing is going. I'll show you, okay, based on last month or this quarter, what is the best performing lead source across REsimpli platform. So you can kind of start adjusting in your business. All of a sudden you start noticing, I've been noticing a trend for the last 4 weeks on a weekly basis. Billboard has been the best performing lead source. So that's something you might want to look into, so that's where you start getting some really good information, insight. Same thing on the sales KPI. How many appointments did I have in my business? How many offers did I make? And what is the average across the industry, so to speak, and then you can filter it based on the team size. What's my average contract to close percentage? What's my, how many calls my team is making? What's the average team making? How many calls they're making? And then same thing on the disposition. You'll have how many total buyers do I have in my database? What's the average across the platform? What's my average assignment fee? What's the average across the system? And how long am I taking to assign a contract versus how long an average investor is taking to assign a contract. So again, one thing I would say, at a minimum, absolutely minimum, you want to make sure you are at least tracking the money you're spending on marketing and the revenue that you're making by every single campaign that you have. And you'll start getting some really, really good insight into your business. Like I'll give you an example, like, we do a bunch of pay per lead, fast home offers, need to sell my house fast, Liberty leads, Compass data, and there's a couple of others. But every single one that we do, we set up a separate campaign for that. So I can say, all right, I'm going to budget $10,000 towards this campaign, and I'll make a decision after I spend $10,000 whether or not this worked or not, because I feel like that's enough money for me to, make a good decision based on the data that I have, if it worked or not. And same thing for, we did the same thing. Really cool thing we did was on our PPC, what we did was, and we're going to start doing it again in our business. So I have my main website, let's say like abc.com. I set up another dummy, another website in my business, let's call it like xyz.com. So abc.com was my primary PPC website, but we also started doing PPC on xyz.com. What would happen? And then we set up different campaigns. All I wanted to see was, because when someone is doing PPC leads, what they're typically doing is they will Google, sell my house fast, whatever, Chicago, New York, whatever city they're in. And they're not just filling out your website. They're typically filling out 3 to 4 websites. So what we wanted to do was we wanted to see if we could have our company show up twice, but the seller, the property seller would not know, because it's a completely different website, different brand name, different phone number, but we would be able to know that it's the same seller filling a website 2 forms on our website, on 2 different websites. And then we made about last year $52,000 on this turnkey property that we sold that came from our second PPC website. But we were able to only be able to track that because of the different campaigns that we were using. Otherwise, we would have no idea. If we just lumped everything under PPC, we would not know that it's this campaign that's working. Same thing on like Bing ads, right? If you're doing Bing and PPC, or Google PPC and Bing, you really want to make sure you separate Google from Bing and see how many leads you're getting from each campaign, how much money you're making, how much money you're spending, what's your cost per lead, cost per deal, and for every dollar that you're spending, how much money you're making at the end of the month. So even if you don't have your, for some reason, if you don't have your bank account linked, at a minimum, I would do is I would go into the bank account that you have manually added, click on add transaction. It's the same thing instead of linking the bank account where it would automatically pull the amount, whether it was money out, money in. You'll have to fill in some of that information, but you can still do that. ABC marketing, let's say I spent $2,000. This was money out, and this was, let's say, online. And I spend this on my general business, direct mail. And instead of probate, let's say this was my absentee campaign for $2,000. So once I do that, I go back into my KPIs. It will still go ahead and update everything throughout the system. And I've noticed that it went up by $2,000 to my absentee campaign. So it still does everything. Again, the more money that you spend, the more transactions that you have in the system, the much deeper insight you'll get into your business on what's going on. Because again, the point is not about making $1 million at the end of the year, but only having $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 worth of net profit. I would much rather make $700,000, $800,000 and have $250,000, $300,000 worth of net profit, because it's the $250,000 that I was making where I was spending actually more money, or I was like barely breaking even, that I don't need to do that. I would much rather have way more efficient business and focus very, very actively on the net profit than so much on the top line number. I would much rather focus on the my net profit number that I have. And then as you're updating your transaction, you go into the financial for every single property. It's pulling all the data. It's linking data throughout the system. So if you go into the property, any transaction you made 4348 North 17th Avenue, you go into the financial tab, it is always there. You can come back anytime. It will be there. If you've added any, attachment to that transaction, the attachment will be there. So if you were to get audited, or you wanted to see, hey, let me see a breakdown of what happened with the transaction, you can always come there and find an attachment for that property. So at a minimum, absolute bare minimum, I would really encourage you guys to start inputting your marketing numbers at campaign level and your revenue numbers. Like start with that and then keep building more. Next thing I would do is start inputting, if you have payroll on your team, start putting in the payroll number. Start adding, start with marketing and revenue. And then as you feel comfortable, then start adding additional, marketing and revenue, or additional numbers from your transactions with your bank statement into the system. So any questions on this?
Yeah, I got one, Sharad. I got to take off in just a second, but real quick, how do you make the KPIs work for you with your fix and flips? You're looking at data today, but your revenue is not going to hit for 4 to 6 months. What are you doing are you putting fake numbers in there for now to forecast, or how are you doing that?
No, so let's say if I buy, properties at the end of the year, right? So I'm closing my books at the end of the year, but that's not going through my P&L then, that's going through my balance sheet. Right? That's where we notice a lot of investors, they will reach out to me. I used to be an accountant, so I'm more than happy to answer some of the basic questions. But when you are doing a fix and flip, money that you spend on buying the property, money that you spend on rehabbing, until you sell the property, it should not go on your income statement. It should always go through your balance sheet. So you're putting this cash out, but it's never actually going through your income statement. So you'll have on your balance sheet, you'll have a bunch of properties that are sitting there pending to close, whenever you sell them. But you don't want.
But how do I see it on my KPIs? Like my KPIs, I'm looking at my marketing expenses are this much, and I'm showing no revenue. And then
you're always going to have that timing difference. We are working on an update that's going to come out in Q3 where you will be able to put estimated expected revenue. Then you can start seeing the money you spent against expected revenue, and we'll show you, over time period, what your expected revenue is versus your actual revenue by each property, each campaign. But yeah, I mean, but your actual financial, like cash basis, you're always going to have a little bit of difference between the time that you spend the money versus time that you make the money. Unless you have like an outlier year, 1 year, it'll all kind of average out more or less. But yeah, I mean that like actual cash to cash basis, you're always going to have a little bit of difference. But we are in Q3, we are going to have an update where you can start putting your expected revenue. So you can start looking at, there'll be additional column of money spent, actual revenue, and expected revenue. Then you can kind of start getting a little bit of sense of that.
Okay, so once that comes out, then I can start to use those KPIs and actually, because right now I really can't tell anything, right? Because the flips are 4 to 6 out, and we tend to do more flips.
Yep. No, I agree. But for flips, another data point that I would look at, Greg, is this data. Like we really, like I have my project manager. I live in Canada. My project manager, we do our fix and flips in Indiana. My project manager lives out in California. And we wanted to come up with a system that was, mutually beneficial. Like all our incentives were aligned. So what I did was, first thing we did was, from the time we buy a property to the time we sell, if you're selling it to a homeowner, it has to be under 180 days. Absolutely no exception to that. 180 days was because, a bunch of time we buy properties, they're, occupied. We have to go through the eviction process. So that's what it takes a little bit of time. But setting that benchmark and also incentivizing my project manager based on that. So what we did was we said, let's say I have a line of credit and I borrow money. I might not, borrow money against a particular property. Like, if I'm taking money out, like it's kind of hard to allocate every single dollar towards each property. So what I did was I said, okay, whatever money we're going to spend for this property, and I have even given her access to the financial in the inventory. So she can go in. So this way she knows that I'm not making anything up. She has access to the financial tab. She can see all the money we spend for every single project that we have in our business. So she'll go in, we'll have a bunch of numbers there. And then we say, all right, let's say if I spend $100,000 total on this project, if it took me from the time we started the project to the time we sold it, if it took me 6 months, every month we take 1% off the total money you spent. It goes towards the interest and holding costs or carrying cost for that project. So let's say if it took me, we made, from the time we bought the property to the time we sold, we made, let's say $25,000. Like, great. But that's not the number we use for the bonus for my project manager. We spent $100,000 on the project. It took us 6 months at 1% monthly interest. It's additional $6,000 that it costs the company. It includes, my lending costs, a little bit of the marketing cost. And then we'll take the $25,000 minus $6,000 for interest and other marketing costs. And we'll incentivize her based on the 19,000. So once we did that, now she's really, and then we also did it where if the total profit of the company at the end of the year, at the end of the day was less than $15,000, then she doesn't make any money. So we have to hit minimum profit on every single project. And once we do that, anything beyond that, we factor in 1% monthly cost of the total money that we spent on that project towards interest and marketing costs. Now she's super, super efficient on, she's pushing the contractor, hey, we have to get our permits. We have to get the estimates. So we're being very, very efficient because it's in everybody's best interest. If I have $100,000, I could use that. Our goal is to use that same $100,000 3 times per year. So basically buy a property Jan 1st from the 100,000 and sell the property by end of April. So within 120, that's kind of what we push for, even though the maximum we allow is 180 days. So we'll try to sell the property by end of April. So 4 months, then we have the same $100,000 available for the next project. And then we'll try to do the same thing, sell it in 4 months, and then again, another 4 months. But if I had the same $100,000 and it takes me 12 months to sell that property, I can only use the $100,000 one time versus being efficient with my processes and use the same money 3 times in a year. So it all of a sudden it goes from $100,000 for one project to $300,000 that I can use for 3 projects in a year. So yeah, I mean, it's a little bit more advanced, but just looking at the data, like something like this, I don't have in my account, like how long did it take from the time we bought the property for us to start the rehab? What was our average rehab time? What was our average list time? What was our average under contract time? Then we look at this, not just the financial data, but also the time data. How long is it taking us in terms of time? Are we buying a property, but it takes us 60 days to start the rehab? That means we need more contractors, or we're buying a bunch of properties that are occupied that, takes us like 30 to 45 days to evict the tenant before we can start the rehab on them. So we track all of that data and then go in and make decisions based on it. Again, this is a little bit more advanced, some of the people that are starting out, but at minimum, I would just start with the marketing and revenue number, and then just review that. Like question yourself. Just think of it like somebody coming into a business, questioning you on every single expense that you have, and you have to justify to that person that was actually a valid expense, and you can prove that it's going to actually make you at least 3 to 4x on your marketing in revenue. If not, then maybe you should not be spending money on that. All right.
Cool. Thanks, Sharad.
Thank you, man. Thanks. All right. Any other question here? Let me see. Jim, did that answer a question about does it have a job or house breakdown to track expenses? Yes. Perfect. Okay. And how do I transfer to my credit card to be recognized as a payment? It's stuck in unrecognized. So Dominic, if you have both your credit card and your checking account linked in the system, it should automatically recognize that you basically move money from your checking to your credit card, and then you should see an option for match. If you do not, just shoot me an email, Sharad@REsimpli.com, and I'll have my developers check into with Plaid. But you want to make sure that transactions from both banks are downloaded into the system. So if you have your credit card, downloaded through April 11th, but you have your checking account only downloaded through last month, and the transaction happened this month, then it won't, because it doesn't found a matching entry, it won't pick it up as a match. All right. Does one of the updates include the ability to tag expenses for a property that is under contract but not in inventory yet? I know you made a video on how to ledger it. Dominic, not right now. That's something we're working on. We've had a few other people ask to start, ability to start putting expenses while the property is under contract and not, hasn't moved to inventory. We're looking into it. It's a little bit of a complex task that we have technically, but yeah, we should be coming out. I know at least like, when you have property in the contract, like a lot of you guys are paying EMD and spending some money on inspection and a few other expenses. So we are looking into that, and we should have an update soon. Cool. All right. Eric, what company are you using to pull your list? We use few different, TopStream, I would say, but if you can get lists directly from your county, I don't have resources, and PropStream is cheap enough where, we can do that. But if you have an ability to go down to your county to get that list before it gets to PropStream or other data providers, then I would definitely do that. So you have a little bit of advantage over other people, that might be 30 to 60 days behind on getting the same data. So if you can go down to your county and get that data, that would give you an advantage over any other list, any other software that you might be using to pull the data. Yeah, thank you, Dominic, for that question. Any update on offering REsimpli trained bookkeepers? Yes. So thank you for that. Yeah, we are going to start offering, we partnered up with a company. We are going to start offering REsimpli trained bookkeepers. So if you're interested, send me an email, Sharad@REsimpli.com. We just had a call with that company this morning. So we are going to start offering them. They'll manage your every single transaction that you have in the system, regardless of how many bank accounts do you have, how many transactions do you have, or how many deals that you do. Just send us an email. We can provide you more information, and we'll also send out an email later this week for that. But yes, we have been working with a company. We've been training their team to just start getting comfortable with REsimpli. So we'll send out an email, but if you're interested, just send me an email, Sharad@REsimpli, and we can get you started with that. Yeah, Wahid, go ahead if you.
Hey, Sharad, this is Jeremy.
Hey.
Hey, quick question, two-part question. Not necessarily referring to the financial piece, What do you right now? And I jumped in on the call kind of late. From a marketing standpoint, what are you seeing right now in the market? We're seeing good success, probably really good success from the PPC side.
Right.
Um, Need to sell my house fast has been pretty decent, but just want to see what are you seeing right now on that part one, and then two. So gonna see, is it possible to even set up a consultation call, maybe like 30 minutes? Because on our side of the business, I feel like we may be doing something wrong, or we're not using REsimpli to our fullest potential, because we do the fix and flips, we do wholesale, and then we still have rentals, right? So
Right.
trying to, and we've got our entities, we've got three different entities. So trying to marry it the right way is probably what we're struggling with, because I think for us, we pay commission and all these different things. So it may be something we're doing wrong. So the second part of the question is maybe setting up maybe like a small 30-minute call from an accounting
Sure.
side, just to give us some insight.
Yeah, absolutely, man. If you want to shoot me an email, we can set up
Okay.
a time and I can get the bookkeepers on the call. Yeah, we have a few other investors that are doing a couple of different things. They're wholesaling. Then they also have an agency business, where they're listing properties and they're also doing fix and flip. So yeah, if you want to send me an email, if you have, whether you're running it through multiple LLCs or single entity, multiple bank accounts, yeah, we can look into that and help you with that.
Perfect.
Cool.
And
Hey,
then
Wahid. Yeah,
in
go ahead.
regards to your
Oh yeah, so regards to that, I would say a PPC definitely has been working well for us. Of the 8 properties that we bought in last like 4 weeks, 6 of them were from MLS. We bought it as a package from an investor selling, um, and the other 2 were from direct mail. So direct mail absentee list, nothing fancy, absentee high equity, including unknown equity and unknown last sale date. Depending on how big your market is, I would add a minimum market to that list for direct mail. And if it's a very large list in your market, then I would just apply some other additional filters, maybe do it for vacant after that. They'll really, condense your list, make it a little bit shorter. But yeah, that. But we are going to have, I'm in contact with Tim from Wholesaling PPC. I actually have a call with him in 30 minutes here, where we are going to be bringing him on one of these mastermind calls, and we're working on putting together like sort of like a training program where you can do your own PPC. So we'll like teach everything on how to manage PPC, where you don't have to hire agency, but if you wanted to, then you'll have resources available. Like some of the things, PPC, basically like online leads, everything else being equal, your inbound leads are going to be more motivated than the outbound lead.
Mhm.
So if you are reaching out to someone through cold calling and SMS, those people are not going to be as motivated as people that are reaching out to you and making the first contact. So yeah, I would look into some inbound leads, and depending on your budget, and then kind of your market that you're in, if you haven't looked into radio or TV, that might be something you might want to look into. Again, it's a little bit more, budget and time commitment. But if you're going to be trying testing out something new, I would look at what other inbound marketing channels that you can apply in your business.
Okay, and so it's funny you mentioned that, because I think it's Nick Perry who runs. He teaches you how to do the PPC as well, and we were actually considering that, because like I said, we use need to sell my house fast.com. It's worked out pretty good, but we're also looking at alternative options, and we even thought about, hey, what if we do our own PPC and we can kind of
It's
eliminate.
not very, to be honest, it's not very complicated. If you watch some, like, honestly, like YouTube videos, and I can give you, if you send me an email, like I used to do my own PPC until like 3-4 years ago, before I got kind of busy with other stuff. It's not, if you send me an email, I can, and this is for anyone, if you send an email to support@REsimpli, and just, if you want to do your own PPC, or even if you're not doing your own PPC using an agency, at least I can send you a list of keywords, based on what worked really well, that you can share with your agency. It's really not that complicated, and you could really have a VA manage all of it. It's the initial setup that takes most of the time, but once you've set it up, it's honestly like should not take you more than 1 to 2 hours per week, if that. to manage it on your own. And then you can take the budget of that you would have paid an agency towards your ad spend, and you'll have more lead. I personally don't do it because I don't have the time or resources, time to do that. I would rather pay someone and have them manage. But if you have the resources, if you have the time for that, a VA, I would definitely train them and really like test it out. You don't have to commit $3,000. You could just test it out with like $500 a month and see how it goes.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. I'll shoot you a note. Thank you. Thanks, bro.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Wahid, did you want to unmute and ask the question?
Yeah, I can definitely do that. I had a question about the direct mail. There were a couple of different kinds of postcards that I wanted to try out, but I wasn't sure if they were compatible with REsimpli. And it was basically sending a postcard with an offer on it. I know that that's not something that we've ever done, but it's something that I don't mind playing around with and kind of testing out the waters just to see what the response rate would be like.
Right.
And I want that's possible for you guys to bring on, along with some other types of postcards, but that one primarily.
Yeah, I mean, if you have that data, how much you would want to offer, and you submit that to us in a file. Let's say you get that whether you get it from Zillow or whatever platform you get it from, like Props and whatnot. So like as long as we can use it as a field that you already have, then we can definitely create a template for you for the direct mail. So the templates that we have on our system, you could either use one of them, or we can create a total custom template. I would say some of the bigger companies that we work with, they would just have us create a custom template. There's no additional cost to that. But yeah, as long as you have it in an Excel file or CSV file with how much you want to offer, we can definitely create a template and then get that postcard or letter out with that offer amount.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Cool. All right. And hey, Brian, do you do not advise adding your tax account, do you? And can you explain like what do you mean by adding your tax account?
Yeah, so following the profit first method, I have several different bank accounts. Yeah, in my last business, my partner did all the bookkeeping and everything. So
Okay.
it got a little confusing, I believe, because we had every single account linked.
Okay.
And as we were reconciling our books, we had to, just either, do you advise against just having the savings in there at all? And, or if you do have the savings in there, the tax savings, just ignoring the transaction? Or
I mean, I would not ignore it, because if you ignore it, right, let's say if you do not add your tax account, right, you have let's say you just have one profit first account for tax, and then you just have your main checking account and this tax account. If you do not add your tax account, when you take the money out of your checking account, like, then you'll show it as a draw, which will not be accurate. So you really want to, I would personally have like checking and tax account, because then both of them would show on your balance sheet. So at any given time, you can go into your financials and see, like if I went into my financials right here, it would show me how much money I have in each of the accounts that I have, right? And if I did not do that, then it would kind of mess up my finances, right? Then it would not show me the accurate information, based on like each of the bank accounts that I have.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and then when you take money out of your tax account and pay the IRS or your state your free state taxes, at that point I would show it as a draw, but then you would have the accurate information on your financials.
All right, perfect.
All right, Jorge, I will take your email and send you an email. But if you want to send an email, send it to Sharad at REsimpli. I'm going to put it in the chat for everyone. Yeah, if you guys have questions on the bookkeeping, REsimpli trained bookkeeper, I put my email in the chat. So send an email and then we'll get you started on that. And what are the sources of vendors for training? Jorge, can you explain me that question? Like, what do you mean? So I make sure I answer it correctly.
Yeah, I just wanted to have a little bit more training because I still have some difficulty using the software. I do have a VA, right. But I don't think I'd like to learn it a little bit more myself. So maybe you have recordings of all the trainings that you've done.
Yeah, so
beginning
couple
when
of
you first got started or with the new updates?
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple of things like if you're not signed up on course.resimpli.com, like send an email to our support team and ask them to set up an account for you. And then the other thing is if you go to help.resimpli.com, every single training call that we do, if you go all the way down to the mastermind calls, all the calls that we've done are posted right here. And they're also posted to our YouTube channel. But I would I would start watching these. Like this is REsimpli 3.0 training call. This was, I think, 2-hour call. But yeah, so let me put this in the chat also. So this would be recording of all the calls that we have for last 53, so more than a year's worth of recording, and we update it on a weekly basis. I'll put it for everyone, sorry. Yep. Yeah, so I would do that. And then one other thing, and for everyone on the call, we offer unlimited onboarding. So if you guys have any questions, you can book as many onboarding calls as you want with our team. There's no limit on that. So if you just send an email to support@resimpli.com, they will book a call with you. They'll send you a link to book a call, and then you can do that. There's no charge. You don't have to pay anything, and you can book it as many times. What I've noticed some of the other teams do is, like, if you hire an acquisition manager, rather than you training your acquisition manager, you can have them book a call with our team and we will get them familiar with the system. So you're not getting them familiar. And we will also record the call and send you the recording, so it becomes part of your training program for any future team member that you're bringing on. All right. Dominic, you have a question about vendor call flow. I have one set up and tested it by texting and calling, but I don't see where to find the call recording or text in REsimpli. So if you go right here in vendor, it will show up in that specific vendor's like communication log. Was that your question, Dominic?
Yeah, but I still just don't see anything in there.
You want to make sure, like, when you're buying a phone number, there's one for each like contact type. So you want to make sure that the number that you're texting is your vendor phone number. Otherwise, it'll go into, like, if you're texting your leads or buyer number or REsimpli dialer number, then it'll go into that specific part of the system.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I have it set up that way. It's just not showing up. I tried like from my personal cell and then from another like Google Voice number, and nothing's showing up under there.
I mean, it should show up in your vendor. If not, just I'll have my team, someone from my team reach out, but send an email to like support@REsimpli, or click on the live chat right here, and then someone will get in touch with you and kind of look into it.
Okay.
See if, like, for some reason the message is getting blocked or something. It should not be, but yeah, just in case, like, send an email and or do live chat, and someone from my team will look into it.
Okay, cool, thanks. And along the lines, is there an update for both buyers and vendors as far as notifications? More so concerned about the buyer side. Like, I don't really get a notification on the app or an email or anything on the website to know when like a buyer or a vendor is texted or called. Well, called, obviously my phone rings.
For buyer, you should see it right here. So anytime you get a call, text or call, you should see it right here in the inbox. That number should go up. So if you have a new message from right here, so you want to make sure, like, kind of keep an eye on this. Vendors, for now, I believe you get a communication through email, but I'll double check with my team on that and let you know.
Okay. Is there a way to set it up for buyers as well to get like an email or some kind of notification other than just checking the dashboard?
You should be, like, if you go into your profile, you should have an option from like new calls from buyers and new SMS from buyers. So this is all for email communication. So if you want to make sure you have it enabled, and then depending on what email platform you have, it'll either go into like your updates or promotions from REsimpli. So make sure that you can move it back to inbox.
Okay.
Okay.
Great. Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks.
Yeah, but if for some reason, if you're not getting any email, let me know and I'll have my team look into it, see what might be going on.
Cool. Appreciate it.
Yeah, sure. Cool. Any other questions, guys, that I can answer for you guys? No? Cool. Awesome. Thank you, everyone, for being on the call. And yeah, Dominic, if you want to send an email for REsimpli bookkeeper and Jorge, same thing, then I'll connect you with our team, and then they can start helping with that. But thank you so much for everyone being on the call. Yeah, accountant and me gets very excited every time we do an accounting call and then, talk about the numbers. So I love that. Cool. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Sharad.
Yeah, thank you. Take care. Have a good rest of the week. Thanks. Bye-bye.